They buy a property and then they find problems that they would have easily identified or seen if they had just asked the question, or if they had just opened that door, or if they just looked under the cupboards. These are the things that you may find that you would then have to fix out of your own pocket because you are now the homeowner.
Hi guys, welcome back to another money discussion with Skilled Finances. My name is Lindy and this is Tando. If you're joining us for the first time, we're so excited to have you here with us. Make sure you're following us on all our socials, that's at Skilled Finances. And for all those of you that love listening to a good podcast when you're driving to work or you're home cleaning, well, we've also got you. That's also at Skilled Finances on different podcast platforms.
Believe it or not, it is very, very possible to regret buying a house. Now, here's the thing. Buying a house is a very long process. There's so much that goes into it. There's so much preparation, so much money, so much time. But even with that, it is very possible that home buyers find themselves having buyer's remorse and regret buying the house that they bought. That is honestly probably one of the most terrible feelings to have when it comes to buyer's remorse. It's one thing to regret buying a pair of shoes, a car, but it's yet another thing on its own to regret buying a house. So how can you avoid finding yourself with buyer's remorse when buying a property? What's the first thing?
Well, the first thing would be to be very clear on why you want the house. Buying a house because you don't want to miss out on what everyone else is doing. Let's say your friends around you are all buying houses and then you're the only one left and you're now like, you know what, I'm the only one that doesn't have a house. You know what, I'm also going to go buy a house. That's not a good reason to buy a house, or that's not a wise reason to buy a house. It's very different if you feel within yourself like, actually, I'm really ready to buy a house. I feel like I'm financially stable. I've got the finances for it. You know what? I'm ready to buy a house. Then that's a whole different story. But don't buy a house because you're fearing missing out on what everyone is doing.
So take some time to basically answer the question, why do I want to buy a house? And really list down all the bullet points that you have. And be honest with yourself. If you can't come up with reasons, then you say, actually, maybe it's not for me right now and it's not the time for me to buy a house right now, then that's okay too. And as you go through this, you begin to get more clarity about why you do want to buy a house, which if the answer to the question is yes, you do want to buy a house, then we move on to the next thing. The second thing is for you to inspect the property thoroughly. Now, when you go to do viewings, what happens is the seller obviously wants to present the house in a sellable condition. So they will clean everything, put everything away and all that kind of stuff, which is good and well because you get to see what the house could potentially look like when you move in as well. But what you don't want to do is to find yourself not looking under the cupboards or not opening other rooms or certain doors because, they tell you there's personal stuff in there. Well, guess what? That stuff will be gone when you buy the house. So you want to see what exactly is behind this door? What exactly is in every room? What exactly is in the loft? What exactly is under the cupboards or under the sink cabinets? What does that look like? Yeah. What do things look like? How does this work? How does that work? And if there's anything that you're unsure of, don't be afraid to ask the seller or the person who's doing the viewing and just say, I've just noticed there's a thing over here. Could you please explain this to me? What does this mean? Or is there an issue with that? Is this a problem that needs to be solved or fixed? The reason for this is because what leads to buyer's remorse in some cases is they buy a property and then they find problems that they would have easily identified or seen if they had just asked the question, or if they had just opened that door, or if they just looked under the cupboards. Yeah. These are the things that you may find that you would then have to fix out of your own pocket because you are now the homeowner. So avoid finding yourself in that position by doing the right thing upfront.
So the third thing to actually do is to make sure you buy a house that is affordable to you. It's very easy to look at houses and think, oh, I love this house. Oh, I want a 5-bed, or I want a 6-bed, I want a mansion. Like, I really want it. Like, in theory, it sounds nice because we all want nice things. We all want big things. But then you have to then draw yourself back in and be like, okay, can I actually afford this house? Because the last thing you want to do is to then buy the house and then have to regret living in it every day, waking up and regretting having the house and struggling to keep up with your mortgage repayments. And the other thing to remember is when you apply for a mortgage, they actually assess whether you can afford the house. Now, some lenders are no longer doing this, whereas some are doing it. But as a person, don't then think that, well, if they're not going to do the affordability check, it doesn't really matter, does it? They're just going to give me the mortgage. Don't really think about it in that way, because at the end of the day, yes, they may give you the money or lend you the money to purchase your property, but you're the one who will be stuck paying for it afterwards. So it's worth even talking to a financial advisor or mortgage broker, mortgage advisor, one that will then check for you if you can actually afford it. Don't just take the money because the bank's giving it, but actually think about how it will affect you in the long run.
Yeah, this avoids you being in a position basically where you feel like your house is a money pit and you're just living to pay your mortgage. That is not the best feeling at all. Now, the fourth thing is to not rush this decision. Now, it's a bit strange market right now. We understand, when the property feels like they're selling faster than they are on the market, and you don't want to miss out on a property that's potentially going to be the one that you really want. So you may find yourself being like, we need to buy a house right now, right now, right now. But, just take your time. Don't feel rushed to make a decision. It's a massive, big decision for you, not just from a financial perspective, but even from a general life perspective. And what can happen as well, you might start to feel pressure from the sellers or the developers if you're buying a new build, or any other sort of parties who are interested in selling that property, estate agents, etc. They might be pressuring you to make a quick decision right now about buying the house today. But here's the thing: I personally wouldn't buy something until I'm comfortable with the decision myself. So if I'm feeling like I'm rushed to buy the property before I've understood everything about the house, or before I've even had a viewing of the property again to make sure that I've covered all the bases that I'm looking for, or before I've understood a particular part that's in the contract that's not making sense to me, there's things like that where I would personally just advocate to make sure that before you cross the line of saying, yep, I'm buying a house, you have ticked every box that matters to you. So just try not to rush. And if you are feeling that rush, just maybe take a moment and just breathe and just think about, okay, what's really important to me right now? And is it for me to make a rush decision, or is it for me to make a right decision? And sometimes the right decision takes a bit of time to make. But if the decision feels right, even if it's a quick decision, that's okay. As long as it feels right, then that's fine. But don't rush it, because again, part of the regret that comes up sometimes is making a rush decision.
So another thing that you can actually do to avoid buyer's remorse is to get full searches done, especially on pre-built homes. Now, a lot of the times when you're buying your house and you've got conveyancers, they will actually include searches in there, but you can also find out what sort of searches they do, because some will do basic searches, some will do full-on searches where they find out all these issues for you. But it's so important for you to be very mindful of what issues or what things may come up. So is there a flood risk in your area, and how bad could the flood risk be? And then think about the structural damage to the property. Now that's one thing that could really cost you a lot of money to fix. So making sure that your searches are done is actually a key thing to do.
So we've been blessed that we've bought houses ourselves that we live in, and we haven't regretted our decisions at all. That's because the tips that we're giving you today are pretty much the things that we've put in practice in our own decisions when we came up to buy our house as well. So hopefully they have been super valuable to you. Now let us know in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube. What have you taken from today? What is it that you're going to do that you will avoid or try and avoid buyer's remorse? And if you're listening to this on the podcast, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We would definitely love to know that you are getting value from our discussions. Thank you for joining us today. It has been a pleasure. We'll see you on the next one.